I just realized this title seems weird, but it's like, I think a friend of a friend saw this tweet from Kent Dodds where he said, just use children. And that's what he named this pattern I'm about to show you, but then we couldn't find the tweet. So I don't know if that's real, but like, yeah. Basically, I'm just going to show a couple of code snippets of some code that's really common if you look at design system components built with React. But if you're a React developer and you haven't worked on a design system before, it's would be like brand new to you. So hold on. Yeah, so before I start talking about that, I just want to talk really quickly about this pattern called slots. It's been around for a while. In a nutshell, it kind of looks like this. So you have, different props, and then instead of passing in data to those props, you're passing in JSX, and you're sort of just using, creating these slots where you can put in different components. And the benefit of this pattern is that you can swap out different components, but still use the same shared component to handle the layout and stuff. But another way to do this is called this just use children pattern. And it kind of looks like this, where you combine using React children, which maps over everything in the children prop, all the child components. And then by mapping over them and using React clone element, you can add other data and other props to that component. So there's some pros to this approach. You can conditionally render certain props to certain children. If that sounds complicated, like I'll show you in the code demo. And the other thing is the order of components isn't coupled to the data those components have. And it also is like less complex for the people using your component. So it's a bit of a trade-off, like there's more complex code on your side, but there's less complex code on their side for them to view when they're using your component. And then I'm just going to do a quick demo here. So, can everyone see my VS Code? And yeah, okay. So yeah, we have this like basic kind of component here. I have a wrapper. The wrapper just has a lot of classes attached to it. So I just put it in the wrapper component so you wouldn't have to see. And you can see I have a cat and dog component here, and I can change the order. Just to show you really briefly, the cat component is just the span with some accessibility stuff, some classes and some emojis. And then it also has a default prop, which I've typed to cat, and same with the dog component. So we can kind of distinguish those components. So if I go back to app, you can see that I built this component called slots. And by default, it's like empty, and I have some default text for it. And you can slot in different components into the left side and the right side. So it looks like that. So you see I've added some data to those components. So the cat is making a cat noise and the dog is making a dog noise. But the problem, there's a subtle problem with the slots pattern, which is the data you pass to those components is sort of coupled to the layout. So if I switch the cat and dog component, you can see they're no longer making their respective cat and dog sounds. So if we change this here and we use the just children component that I created, you can see that if I add a cat and I add a dog, they now are back to making their respective sounds. But there is a slight difference, which is that I could change the order and they're still making the right sounds. Like they still have the right text associated with them. So I just want to kind of dive into the code really briefly for that. So let me just show the slots code really quickly. So you can see the slots code, you have a left and right prop. I just kind of renamed them to constants with caps or else it wouldn't render correctly. And then you can see that I just render those components and I'm passing to the text to them that way. And then with this approach, it's just like the text for the cat noise is always on the left-hand side, which is how we're running into the problem we're running into. If you look at the just children example, what we do is we take the children prop, because every React component actually has children as a prop. And we use React children to map through it. And then remember how I added the type onto it, which is cat or dog? We can filter by those types and then use that to pass the right props using React clone element. And then, so it's a little bit of extra code, and it's a little bit harder to read on our end, but you can see when you look at the app, it's really simple for people to use, and you don't have to kind of be a React expert. If a product person comes and says, hey, can you swap the position of the, the cat and dog? Someone who's not like super familiar with React will be able to do it. So like, I guess like in summary, it's just like when you hear about React patterns, there's lots of blog posts about patterns like slots, and slots are really popular, but it's really important to kind of read through design system code and then work with small examples on your own to really like kind of learn like these patterns that maybe aren't written about so much. And that's it.
Thanks for that, Nicole. That was also an informative session for me. I guess like I couldn't find the information just because I'm not familiar with front end. Why are slots so popular, I guess?
I think they're popular because like they're really easy to create. But then it's like harder for people. Maybe I'm just going to share my screen one more time really quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, it took me a hot minute to wrap my head around it. But then once you showed me the problem with like swapping the dog and the cat, and then realizing that like whatever they want, some of the attributes of the components were coupled to the slots, then I realized, oh yeah, the children kind of pattern. Which yeah. I guess I didn't know there was a name for it. But yeah, the children pattern kind of made a lot of sense.
See, I think I'm going to break stuff temporarily here, but it's just because I want to do how the way slots actually work. So it's like left. So you have the cat and then right. Sorry, I'm having problems typing here. Okay, let's see if that works. Oh, it's like mad about it. Oh, it's because I forgot to. Yeah, so this is the slots pattern, and then you really kind of do it like this. But so instead of me doing this left and right thing, I just take the left and right prop and then drop it directly in. And then this is like, might be more complicated if you're not super familiar with React, but like we usually like use stuff like use state or like use effect to like maybe make an API call or to have some local UI data that we pass to the left and right. It's just for the purposes of the demo, like you can pass stuff unless you make it like the way I made it before, where you pass the props. Like if you're someone creating this component with slots, it's like pretty easy because you can just take the props and then drop it in inside of these like kind of curly brackets, and then you're good to go. But the problem is when people start using your component, let's say cat doesn't just take one prop, it takes like 20, which it's kind of a design system no-no to have like more than 5 props, but it has totally happened in the past. And then it means the person who's using your component, that just makes it more complicated for them. The other thing is, what if the slot takes a slot? So if you have a cat, it might have a prop that also takes a slot. So you can see it's starting to get harder and harder to read. So that's like kind of this weird thing with the slot pattern. And it's not like, I'm not saying the slots pattern is bad, but I'm just saying like when you read like blog posts about different patterns, it's also important to like kind of look at design systems that are open sourced and like look at their code and see how often they're actually using those patterns.